Hello everybody, Keith here again. Today I'm going to do my development orchids, amazingly to me anyway. It's come round, we're now 9 months into this. This is the 4th of the videos, and we have some changes to show, thank goodness. Anyway, that's enough of my waffle, let's get on with it. Okay, now here, and I'm hoping we can see it on the video, but you might need to have a look at the still to be sure. This is actually showing some progress. Not an awful lot, but it's doing something. Since I put it on this mount, it's been a lot happier. It's got a tiny bit of moss, just enough to give it a little bit of a reservoir, but it dries out every day. But the big thing we've got now is roots. There are some roots under the moss which are going down into the bark, and there are a couple which are running along the top of the bark. And I think, well, I'm not dead sure yet, that it might be trying to put another fan up. So this is doing something. At long last, I've managed to find some way of giving it something that it's happy with. It lives on a southeast facing windowsill in our living room, and it pretty much gets watered every day. Mostly with water, occasionally with fertiliser, because the roots have still got green tips, so I'm taking that as meaning they're still growing. So until those tips either disappear or there's no sign of it doing anything, that I'm going to leave well and truly alone. Now we've got the two Phalaenopsis equestris. This, of course, is the original plant, growing steadily. You've got another keiki on the end of the second of the flower spikes it's put up for me. We've got lots of roots, as you can see. Yes, it's losing this big leaf, which is a shame, but we've still got 5 leaves, a little bit smaller, but nevertheless we've got 5 leaves and a 6th is growing, so I don't think that's anything to worry about. The keiki is growing, but there's no sign of any roots as yet. So that's that one. This is the original keiki. Again, we've got roots. It's right down to the bottom of this pot. It's just in bark. It's very happy. We've got 4 leaves on this, and I think before very much longer it's likely to be that this will be able to be passed on to somebody else. Beautiful little plant, never gets much bigger than that. The Rutherlington Orchid project shows one being grown in a coffee cup that they put a hole in the bottom of, just as a bit of a gimmick. But that I'm very happy with. I'll step back a bit for this one. This is, of course, Psychopsis mariposa. The latest flower started to open yesterday. They take the time to fully open, and that will last 2 or 3 weeks, looking very nicely. Anyway, so the progress of the plant itself. We've had 2 new growths come up this year. This one, and this one behind it. This has got slightly damaged. What happened I don't know, but as you can see there, we've got a rip in the leaf. Don't know what happened there, but we've got yet another new growth coming up just there. So again, this sits on the same windowsill as the hawkesiana and the equestris. Whether it gets quite enough light, I'm not honestly sure, but I suspect it's doing okay, and it's probably getting ready for a repot. I don't know how well you can see underneath there, but we've got lots of roots all the way through the pot. It's been in this for very nearly a year, but although there's some moss in there, probably quite a bit of moss in there actually, it seems perfectly happy, so long as I've said before, so long as the bulbs themselves are not actually getting damp. I think I said in the last one, these on the front, just there, when I repotted it last time, I covered those up because I thought, well, okay, not really a problem, they don't usually suffer from that. I thought that the danger point was actually where the leaf joins the top of the pseudobulb, and it's not, it's the pseudobulb itself. But as soon as I cleared it away so that there was at least some air getting to the bulbs, whatever was happening stopped, and it's stabilised. There's nothing wrong with those bulbs at all, they're nice and hard. So I've got a plant here that's growing pseudobulbs, very well bulking itself up, we've got lots of roots, but we've still only got one spike. Don't know how to induce another spike, whether I've got to put it in more light or not, I don't know. It stayed on the front windowsill all the way through the summer this year. Last year it was here in the conservatory, where it will certainly get, if not more light, it will get longer light, because the living room window, I have to move them off that every night so I can draw the curtains. So the next morning they have to go back on again. So sometimes, especially during the summer, when we get long days, it won't get as much light as it could. So next year I might well bring it in here. So I'm happy with that one. That's another one that's doing very well. Here's one that I really could not be more pleased with, and really I couldn't be much more surprised with either, because when I bought this last year I was convinced it would be dead by the beginning of 2021, and in fact it's gone completely crackers. It is still putting up new growths, not very many, we put a lot of new growths up earlier in the year, and we've had quite a lot of flowers on it. As you can see, I took 3 spent flower spikes off this morning. I haven't seen any more flower spikes coming lately, but nevertheless we've got some new growths on the plant. We've got lots of roots on this thing going down into the medium. So this is a plant that is really, really nice. I took the advice, or I'm going to take the advice of Mick from Mick's Masdevallias, and leave this alone until the spring, when it should really start going into life again and start belting new growths up. Although, as I say, it's still putting new ones up, but I'm not. It's okay. As I say, I'm really, really pleased with this. I'm not going to change what I'm doing. What I will say about this is that it's really, you could almost argue, being mistreated compared to my other orchids. I normally feed my orchids for 3 weeks and water them, flush them if you like, for 1. With my Masdevallias I do it the other way around. I really don't have the wherewithal, especially with only 2, to set up a week fertiliser for it to do it more often. So it gets my full strength, which is the orchid focus at the recommended concentration, once a month. Either bloom or grow, depending which it's doing more of. And then the rest of the time, I normally like the first week of the month, the rest of the time this just gets water, rainwater, and nothing else. And given by the way it's growing, that seems to be working extremely well. So on that basis, I'm not going to do anything else with it. Dendrobium jenkinsii. For a long time this was lying flat in a pot which had some moss on the top and a lot of bark chips underneath, and it seemed to do okay. But it got too big for that, and I didn't want to keep it on that way. I bought this cork bark from a local garden centre called Pet Shop, and they sell this for reptiles and what have you. Did as Roger suggested, sterilised it with boiling water and scrubbed it with a toothbrush. Put this on, distilled it as little as possible. And relatively recently, if you go back and have a look in my archive, you'll see that I took the old moss mat away because it seemed to be drying out extremely fast, as if it had lost its nature and it wasn't absorbing a lot of water. And I just put a few little bits on, like the hawkesiana, just enough to give it a little bit of a reservoir to stop it drying out too quickly, because it's not that humid in here. But nevertheless, it seems to have settled. We haven't had many new growths this year, probably because I remounted it, but we've had a couple, and this is the latest one. It's just poked its nose out of the moss and come up. So again, I think what we can say there, because when I repotted it, there were some roots going down into the cork. This is enjoying being where it is. It's settling to it. Yes, we've got some older pseudo-bulbs or canes, whatever you want to call them, that aren't looking very good. But I think that is another one that's starting to settle. And it'll be interesting to see how well it flowers this year. But I'm just happy that it's growing, because as usual with me, I'm making it up as I go along. Okay, Bulbophyllum fascinator. We've had a couple of new growths this year. It hasn't done a heck of a lot. It's been repotted, and they don't like to be repotted, we know that. But it doesn't seem to be objecting too strongly. All the pseudo bulbs are plump. Some of them haven't made such big sizes as they might have done, which is a little bit worrying, but I'm just trying to see how things go. But again, it's put some new growths up, things are doing, we've got some, I can see some roots with green tips of some of it, off this particular pseudo bulb, so I think we should be alright with this. I hope so anyway. Right, let's come back a little bit to start with. These are the 3 Cymbidium mavanine jesters, which I got in October 2020, so just on a year ago. They were free to members of the East Midlands Orchid Society, and I had 5. I gave 2 to my sister-in-law because the only orchids she keeps are Cymbidiums. and I kept 3, and because I got 3 in, as I say, they were identical. They were just in moss. Didn't bother disturbing them. I just put them in these pots, and I decided I might as well experiment and see what was going on, or what would work best. This is a slightly larger pot than the others are in, and these are in plain bark. We have one new growth which has come up quite nicely. The other 2 pseudo bulbs have swelled a little bit. This one, which I think was a new growth when it went outside, they'd been outside all summer, something odd happened with these leaves, so they didn't really form very well, but this has done absolutely fine. So I think we can be reasonably happy with that one. This one is also in bark chips, but it's in a 4-inch pot. It's done slightly better, I think. The pseudo bulbs are bigger, both of them. It was the slowest to put a new growth up, but we've got one, and it's growing quite strongly. And I think now it's going, it'll be fine. We've got roots around, so it seems to have settled into its new environment. These have only just come in, they came in a couple of days ago, and they'll now stay in until the beginning of next year. Once the frosts are over, and they'll go back outside. Now then, the one that has undoubtedly done best of all is this one. 4-inch pot, but this time with the Westland commercial compost. So this is small bark and ceramis, so it's really quite water retentive. And what you've got here are the original 2 pseudo bulbs. You've got a nice big one here with a pseudo bulb that's beginning to swell, and another new growth there. So this one, at least so far, is doing the best of the 3 of them. So that's the Cymbidium mavanine gesters. Still some time from flowering, I think, but I think we're on the right road. My 3 Restrepias now, and this is where we've got several tales to tell. This is sanguinea, looking very happy. We've had one new growth come up already, and there's one just showing above the surface of the medium there. Now this is the one that I repotted a little while ago. Not done the others, and I think that's part of the problem. We'll see in a couple of seconds. But nevertheless, this one is quite clearly doing okay, and I'm going to need to get that sorted out. Again, whether it's too humid in this tank with a lid on, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how well they grow now that it's cooled off a little bit. This one is Brachypus, and this is not very happy at all. We had some new growth last time. This cakey looks as if it's ready to come off naturally. It did put a new growth up, another cakey type new growth extended off this one, but the leaf never opened, and it's quite flabby compared to the others. The problem, and I know exactly what it was me thinking that the fact it was in a terrarium and there was lots of humidity about meant it wasn't going to lose too much moisture in the pot, and that proved to be wrong. And this one obviously dried out a little bit too much, and it's not really recovered. I think this is going to have to come out of the pot, get rid of this fern, and repot it, put that in with it, and hope it will pick up. But it might mean buying another plant, unfortunately, which is a shame, because as you've seen with sanguinea, they can do quite well. This is Cuprea, another one that needs repotting, but this one's put some new growths up. So obviously this one didn't get too dry, and it managed to survive. So I think now it's cooled off. I think now is probably the time to get it out of this pot and get it sorted out, get rid of everything except the Restrepia out of this pot. So that's the end of the development show for this quarter. I forgot to say that as well as moving the cymbidiums around, I've moved some of the warmer plants upstairs onto one of the bedroom windowsills, and I've brought the Restrepias and my two Masdevallias downstairs and put them in here. The reason is that this now gets cool at night. It's getting down to 16, 15 and a half, 16 some nights, sometimes down to about 17. Fairly soon I'm going to have to pull all the blinds down, and the plants are going to have to put up with the limited level of light they're getting. But the reason, as I say, is that in here in the summer, it's very common in the afternoons, especially if we're not around to open the top light windows, for the temperatures in here to get well over 30 degrees. And of course Restrepias and Masdevallias do not want that, so they've been upstairs for, like the cymbidiums have been outside, they've been upstairs on a windowsill in one of our upstairs spare bedrooms, where the temperatures might get into the mid-20s, but they're not going to get an awful lot more than that, and they seem to have been quite happy. And as you've seen, the Masdevallia Patricia Hill has put up a lot of new growth and it's flowered, so it's obviously been very happy. So that's the end of this lot. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.